One thing I'm going to start doing more of is latest news. I like to keep my followers a little bit more updated on current news about what's happening in the world today. I used to do this with the geopolitics in the Middle East, but I want to expand a little bit and talk about domestic issues, geopolitical issues, the most pressing story of the day, which everybody should be a little bit more aware of. I know that a lot of people tend to watch sports or entertainment to basically get away from the doldrums of the depressing news. But instead of watching like CNN or Fox, which has a bias behind it, I'll try to do my best to give um, a reading of the news without the biases. You'll know that I'm the same way when it comes to 9/11. There is a story that is making the rounds, and I saw this earlier today on Twitter, and we're gonna read this together. So this is actually from CBS News. It's dated May 21st. Senators issue satellite phones, offer demonstrations on upgraded security devices. Amid growing concerns of security risks to members of Congress, more than 50 senators have been issued satellite phones for emergency communication. Now, let me just do one more thing. Let me blow it up just one more time, so this way you could read it too, right? People familiar with the measures told CBS News. The devices are part of a series of new security measures being offered to senators by the Senate Sergeant at Arms, who took over shortly after the assault on the U.S. Capitol on January 6, 2021. The satellite phone technology has been offered to all 100 senators. CBS News has learned that at least 50 have accepted the phones, which Senate administrative staff recommends senators keep in close proximity during their travels. In testimony before the Senate Appropriations Committee last month, Senate Sergeant at Arms Karen Gibson said satellite communication is being deployed to ensure a redundant and secure means of communication during a disruptive event. Gibson said the phones are a security backstop in the case of emergency that takes out communications in parts of America. Interesting. Federal funding will pay for the satellite airtime needed to utilize the phone devices. Of course they will. Department of Homeland Security advisor said satellite phones are a tool for responding to and coordinating government services and care in the case of a man-made or natural disaster that wipes out communication. Gibson has also opened an office demonstration space in the basement of the Russell Senate office building to offer senators and staff an exhibition of new home states office security upgrades. The demonstration room offers exhibitions of duress buttons, mail screening devices, and safety glass to reduce the risk of attacks. In her testimony before the Senate panel in April, Gibson reported our team provided initial physical security enhancements for 31 offices and improved existing security for 52 others in 2022. That's a lot of funding for this very expansive program. Security systems in good working order is a priority. And to support this effort, our team conducted over 622 service calls to maintain, repair, and or test and inspect state office physical security systems in 2022. Senate administrators have also offered to stop the bleed training to better equip staffers to respond to medical emergencies and victims of attack. In April, the House Sergeant at Arms, William McFarland, told legislators that there is robust participation in a program to help House members secure their home residences. Interesting. McFarland said the House administrators are coordinating with local police departments to help protect members of Congress who hold events in their home states and to help better secure the homes of members. A spending bill passed in late 2022 provided additional funds for hometown security measures for Congress. The legislation required security administrators to enhance member protection, including providing a security program for congressional leadership, expanding dignitary protection division services, and expanding USCP field office presence, which would deploy and broaden Capitol Police protection in cities outside of Washington. Though the U.S. Capitol complex is shielded by a force of nearly 2,000 Capitol Police employees, where were they? There have been growing concerns about hometown security from members of Congress. A California man was charged in a 2022 attack at the San Francisco home of then House Speaker Nancy Pelosi. The assailant was allegedly targeting Nancy Pelosi when he confronted and attacked Pelosi's husband, Paul, with a hammer. In a May 15 attack at the Fairfax, Virginia office of Representative Gary Connolly, one of Connolly's constituents, is accused of attacking two of the congressman's staffers with a metal baseball bat. Both are briefly hospitalized and are recovering. The article. Now, I've been seeing a lot of the extremists taking this to the poll, saying that this is basically a warning that the 50 people who took the phones are basically going to use that as communications when communications run down. How would communications be run down? Well, if cyber one way of understanding cyberterrorism involves the idea that terrorists could use massive loss of life, worldwide economic chaos, and environmental damage by hacking into critical infrastructure systems. The nature of cyberterrorism covers conduct involving computer or internet technology that, one, is motivated by a political, religious, or ideological cause. Two, is intended to intimidate a government or a selection of the public to varying degrees. Or three, seriously interferes with infrastructure. And I'll link the article in the description of this. So, what can we take away from the article by CBS News? Are we overreacting? Sure. It could be that these phones are basically easy avenues of access and communication to one another in case another January 6th comes out. But even that story is a little bit fishy. And it seems like the FBI, through the Durham report, is basically not being forthright with the investigation. Now, you'll know that I'm not Republican, I'm not Democrat, I don't believe in divisional human constructs. I don't pertain to any racist ideology, I don't pertain to any political ideology, I don't pertain to any religious ideology. Even though I'm atheist, I'm not prejudiced toward the spiritual aspects of monotheism, Christianity, Judaism, and Islam. I think religion has been hijacked by fanatics, and they are not representatives of the community of whole. I do have an appreciation of the spiritual aspects of religion, especially outside of monotheism. Monotheism, I think, has been used by nefarious agendas through the church, through mosques and synagogues, to put fear into humankind to basically acquiesce to the whims of that specific religious organization. And you'll know that I have no compulsion or affiliation with anything that's going to divide this human species. And one thing I'm not persuaded by is this fanatical political divide that we're undergoing today. And I try to bring a little bit of rationale in regards to what is currently happening in and 9/11, which is my area of study. So you'll know that if you know me well enough through viral media, I hope I'm consistent in this regard. If so, I hope I gained your little bit of trust, and that's daring to say, that what I'm trying to tell you is that don't go off believing the extremes. Also, don't go off believing mainstream news. Even though I read that article to you, look into it with not rose colored glasses, but look at the world through a gray lens. Not everything is black and white. There's a lot more questions than answers. So it's always good to play devil's advocate with anything, even people that you know that you completely unadulteratedly trust. Always plays devil's advocate. So because you know what? The people that will hurt you the most are the people that are close to you. Now, you may have a fantastic life. You know, your friends, family have never abused your trust. If that is what happened to you at this point, you're very lucky. Okay. And you're fortunate and good luck to you. But always plays devil advocate. Doesn't mean you have to distrust anybody, but always play both sides of the fence. Leave open options. So, what do we do when we look at a story like that? Be careful and try to basically not just look at one source, but look at multiple sources. If you see a commonality or a repetitive narrative, be very wary because one thing, it could either be the truth, because the truth is non-negotiable, or it could be a media narrative that they're not telling you the truth and that this is the narrative that either they want or that it's coming from the intelligence apparatuses, the State Department, the governments, local, federal, whatever. And this is what they want. How do we know what is true and what is not? It's hard because it takes time. You have to, as I always say, do your due diligence and research into anything that you read, especially something that's so important that involves and affects all of us, right? Now, I read you a definition of cyberterrorism. Now, there's some legitimacy here regarding cyberterrorism. We have never seen a full-scale cyber terrorism attack on this country that has affected our way of life yet. I think it's going to come. And I think when messages like this, it doesn't happen tomorrow. It doesn't happen next week. It may happen in a month. It may happen in a year or 2 years or 3 years. Just like with 9/11, we had the warning signs. For example, 1996, information came out. Bin Laden wants to use planes as weapons. Sleeper cells in the United States. 1998, a terrorist attack on U.S. embassies. Attributed Bin Laden. 2000, attack on the U.S.'s Code. Millennium Plot. Intelligence comes in 2000, 2001. Now it's really coming in. Hey, there's a threat. Take care, take heed. Okay. But you, the public, may not be getting that information from the intelligence service. It may trickle down little by little, but you're not getting those warnings. The intelligence services are. But when you start seeing a little bit of stream and a little bit of warnings about precautions taken by members of our congressional districts, local, state, federal governments. So when I see a story like that and I see 50 phones going to out of 100, I ask myself, well, all right, let's just say that it is basically about communications. Something like a style attack like January 6th, they want to be able to say, hey, are you okay? Can we coordinate a room so we can have better options on what to do next? That could be very well be the case. But if we look into the more extreme measures of conspiracy and not delve into the irrational, right? and talk about what if you are using those phones in case of a cyber terrorism attack that takes down all communications, meaning internet, phones, TVs, anything that's connected to satellite systems. That's a very plausible scenario. How would we react to it as a public? Well, in the same way we reacted to 9/11. It would be unprecedented. It never happened before. And how did we react to 9/11? Irrationally. In the days after 9/11, I mean, even on 9/11, you had a Howard Stern, when the buildings didn't even totally collapse yet. Howard Stern was screaming about a nuclear attack on the Middle East. The public in a week was begging. Democrats and Republicans overwhelmingly voted for a war, except for one person, Barbara Lee, in Afghanistan. She was right to vote against it. And she was vilified by her own constituents in the Democratic Party. 20 years later, they're apologizing to her somewhat. She was vindicated. Iraq came later, 2 years later, through lies from our intelligence services and of Israel, of course. So we reacted very poorly for 9/11. So I would submit to you now, of course, I have no influence. I'm a small channel. I'm a nobody. I'm not an expert by any means in any area. So why would you listen to me? For those who follow, like I said, follow my channel, know me a little bit, maybe you could trust me a little bit. But what I'm saying to you is not irrational. And I'm not telling you to choose a side. I'm telling you to use your own head, rationale. When you make a decision based on emotions, it's always wrong. Crimes of passion, crimes of murder, passion murders, lust killings usually happen when the person is not thinking clearly and they're using their own emotions, perverse or irrational. And so I would submit to you that if a cyber terrorism attack comes, to not go off the ledge and start blaming China, which is what certain Republicans are doing. Don't automatically believe the Democrats who are saying that, Republicans are lying to you. It's coming from Russia. Don't fall for anybody. One thing I could possibly say that could get your attention and agree with 100% is that the federal government is full of liars. Does that mean they're lying 100% of the time? No. But in this case, when it comes to interests outside of our own, I don't have a problem with the Chinese. I don't have a problem with Russians. I don't have a problem with Ukraine. I don't have a problem with any country. They never did anything to me. In fact, my federal government has done more to harm me and my fellow constituents in this country than any country on the face of the earth. Do you need a history lesson of what's been going on in the last 20 years? So stop looking abroad, start looking inward. That's my advice to you. And think with your head and not with your heart. Not all the time, anyway. Sometimes your intuition is correct, but that's very low. So what I'll do from now on is basically, if I see a big story, I'm going to do a video just like this, and I'll report it to you immediately as soon as I get home from work, because I like to have an educated audience, an informed audience, because with an informed audience, we can take action, and action speaks louder than words. See you in the next video. Good night, everybody.